Okay, so recently Stuart Phillips from McMaster University put a post on Facebook, and it has to do with, and I've got a related video here, see below, that you can see basically what looks like more or less a sign or a graphic that's been created, obviously not a actual scientific study and everything, but it's basically saying ACSM, which is the American, geez, I'm going to forget what it stands for now. Hang on. It's the American College of Sports Medicine. So a couple of things that they say. There's not one perfect program. And I agree with that. And it does say at one point something that I've said before, which is kind of like one of these things, which is the biggest difference you're going to have is the difference between resistance training and not doing it at all. And I have often said before, that as long as you don't hurt yourself and you do something that's sustainable and consistent, that you're going to get results. A little faster, a little slower, but as long as you stick with it and you do it. Again, with the idea of being sustainable. So they're basically agreeing with me on that. They're pointing out also in this graphic that free weights, machines, bands, body weight exercise, or home-based training can all work. And of course they will. There are some that are safer, there's some that are more efficient. And I do think that there is a room for discussion on how safety in the long run can make a big difference. Now, so big in the middle of the graphic is you do not need to train to failure to build muscle. And with that, I kind of go, all right, it's almost like a shot at Arthur Jones and HIIT community. And just to go back to Arthur Jones, who probably first coined or at least popularized the idea of training to failure, keep in mind that even he said that training to failure was not necessary in order to create a stimulus. But he said that it's very difficult to measure almost failure. And so if you train to failure, he says it's not necessary, but you know that you've done everything that you can in order to provide a proper stimulus. So the next bullet on this graphic says, train hard, challenge your muscles. And then it says, get close enough, 1 to 3 reps in reserve. Well, see, here's the problem that I have. And I guess I have mixed things. I guess if this gets people training because they're maybe intimidated by the idea of training too hard, fine. But at the same time, as public messaging goes, I can see this being interpreted as an excuse to not work nearly as hard. And as Arthur Jones said, it's really hard to measure almost failure. So the idea of 1 to 3 reps in reserve, matter of fact, the idea of reps in reserve at all kind of is tough because there have been studies that have shown that when people are asked to come close to failure and keep a certain amount of reps in reserve, and then subsequently people go to failure, that almost everybody seriously underestimates what they're able to do by trying to go lower than failure. So that part, I just find that the messaging there is just an excuse for people to not work hard. And the other thing I have is, to me, first of all, there's definitions. And maybe this isn't a study in fairness, but what is failure? So I do agree, some of the things that people do, like forced reps and really holding the last rep and working like crazy and whatnot, or even sacrificing form to get a few more reps, I agree that those things are not only necessary, but quite possibly counterproductive, as they would seriously create the need for way more recovery. And I like the idea of what they call task failure. In other words, do as many perfect reps in as good form as you can, and as soon as you start to deteriorate your form at all, the set is over. So I think that's good, but I just feel like it's almost, and it goes on to say, failure is a tool, not a requirement. So absolutely, even though you don't have to go to failure every time, the only way to really know if you're getting stronger or not, is to try to do as many reps as you can. The other thing that they don't really define failure. The other thing is they don't really define reps. So to say 1 to 3 reps in reserve, because most people, if you look at what reps are doing, and even some of the people, most of the people in universities that are doing these studies, if you see videos of their workouts, their reps are usually 1 second up, 1 second down, maybe 2 seconds. So that's a big difference between somebody who's doing 5 seconds up, 5 seconds down. So what does 1 and 3 reps in reserve even mean? And to me, it's really important, if you're going to do something that's supposedly is scientific based, to measure things. Now, the next thing that it says is recover well. So then we're exactly on the right track. As a matter of fact, the big bullet in here is you do not need to train to failure, like this is some big discovery. And to make that big, to me, if you're going to have a big something in big bullets, it would be that recover well. Put as much emphasis on recovery as you do on stimulus, maybe more. As a matter of fact, one of the people I follow on Instagram, Birkland, Team Birkland, put up a thing that I thought was well. It says, for natural athletes, the closest thing that you're going to get to performance-enhancing drugs is sleep. And the person who said Good to Go, another author, I forget the name of the author, but the book Good to Go said, if she was going to rank the different things that are used for recovery from 1 to whatever, the first 20 would be sleep. So it says the next one I really agree with, be consistent, progress over time. In other words, it's not a race, it's a marathon. As long as you're doing well, especially as you're getting older, you're not going backwards, and stay sustainable. Well, there they must have came from my sustainable success. Start simple, train consistently, future you will thank you. So that part I fully agree with. Anyways, thanks for watching, listening, and subscribing.